Hey guys, insight number 2. As I mentioned in the first one, there's only 4 this week. I'm not dropping one on Monday here, New Zealand time, because for most of you, that'll be Conference Sunday, and you need to watch that. So, 4 insights, and they'll drop through the week, as well as all my conference, like, oh my gosh, what's that? And I love this talk, and that's so cool, and I'm crying about what they said, and wasn't it so cool this? So, you'll get all that goodness too. But this should be a Wednesday in New Zealand, probably a Tuesday for most everybody else, but you'll figure it. I know you guys got this. So, I talked about what the allegory of the olive tree is in insight number 1. So we're just going to look here at verses 50 through 76, which is actually the time of the restoration of the gospel in the vineyard. If we're breaking it down, the breakdown's in the first one, so go watch that. So this is talking about our time in the vineyard. Now it starts off in 50, which is just so lovely, because at the end of 49, the Lord of the vineyard says to the servant, go and cast down into the vineyard and cast them into fire. They don't want to cumber it up. What more could I have done? I've done everything I could. And the servant says, give them more time. And I'm just like, yes, please, give us some more time. We're trying, it's really hard. Spare it a little longer. And the Lord said, yeah, I'll spare it a little longer, for it grieveth me that I should lose the trees in my vineyard. And I although it's a transition from, if you're looking at in a allegory context, that it takes it from that time of no church or no gospel of Jesus Christ on the earth to the restoration of the gospel. And certainly during that restoration process, as we saw, which is still happening, by the way, which is why a conference is so exciting, because we always get little glimpses of how things are going to update. Even if they don't announce them, it's always around this time that things just start to change a little. And it's kind of really cool if you can see them. If you're participating fully in the gospel, which, if you're not in that space, that's okay. But if you are participating fully in the gospel, you will see these little, just incremental little things here and there. And maybe a lot of them don't even apply to you, but it's still like, it's really cool. So give it some more time. It's still happening, and he didn't want to lose any of us. So he's like, no, okay, I'll give it more time. So that happens. So they go in and they do more work, and they graft, and they do all these things. He talks a lot about it. And again, it's for some, like myself, it's a little hard to read, but it is actually very easy to understand if you just break it down. But one of the verses, or a few of the verses I want to point out here, in 58 it talks about nourishing again the trees of the vineyard. So again, I'm going to nourish the people of the world. And we'll trim up the branches, and we'll pluck from the trees the branches that are ripened and that must perish, and cast them to fire. So we're going to burn off the stuff that's not good. And it's, again, he says burn, and you think, oh, he doesn't literally burn people. No, he does not. But it's about, in a farming term, you do burn off stuff to get that fresh growth, to get that renewal, to get the goodness that comes through. And so that, because it's an allegory, that's what they're talking about. It's about trimming and cutting off those things that are hindering us from growing better. That's what it's talking about. But 59 is lovely, and this goes back to what Paul says in the New Testament. It says, and this I do that perhaps the roots thereof may take strength because of their goodness, and because of the change of the branches, that the good may overcome the evil. Again, that he's giving us that opportunity to grow so that we have more good in us, to be more of that than anything else. So again, those opportunities continue to come, and that digging about and that pruning and that nourishing continue, so that we never have to just be by ourselves. We're not doing this alone. There's a whole lot of stuff in there you can learn and apply to our lives, which is just lovely. Down in 60, it talks about that Jesus wants to have a joy in the fruit of his vineyard. He says that I may rejoice exceedingly, that I have preserved the fruit and the branches of the first fruit. He's like, this is the gathering of Zion. This is the time where the gathering of Israel happens, where they bring all the trees back together and look at what's there and what's going to be good, and really, like, it's a wrapping up of a vineyard before harvest, and just that, what have we got, and how's, and he's like, I want all of this to be good. I don't want to lose half the vineyard. I don't want to lose any of the vineyard. I know some of the trees have gone a bit wild, because we do, right? As humans, we do that. But I don't want to lose any of them. because I love them all. I really care about this vineyard. This is really lovely. Verse 61, I really wanted to point out too, because this is where he brings us in and says, come labor with me, which is so nice. He says, wherefore go to and call servants, that we may labor diligently with our might in the vineyard, that we may prepare the way, that I may bring forth again the natural fruit, which natural fruit is good and the most precious above all other fruit. Now, in a modern day equivalency of this allegory, I like to think of it as, let's take out all the hybrids and the bits that, that the world put in to improve the fruit. And I know that they do that for a reason, don't get me wrong. This is allegory speaking here. Let's take out all that stuff and let's go back with what God created in the first place, with the original fruit that was good, that could do good by itself, that didn't need assistance from everybody else, that actually was just born good, like we are born good, and was allowed to just be good. And I think that's really nice too. So we get to go and help do that can actually happen. And in 62, they clear away the branches which bring forth bitter fruit. It's like, no, we don't need that in our lives. Let's take that out. And that Jesus talks and he says, according to the strength of the good and the size thereof. So according to how the tree's doing, or according to how us is doing, he will come in and do what is needed, suited to that particular situation. And Jesus works each of us individually. We're not a blanket cause. We don't get all the same fertilizer. We don't get all the same pruning. Each of us gets individual attention. And you can imagine this is a huge vineyard. It's an incredible blessing. And down in 74, it's a Jesus who never gives up on you, and he preserves you and your family. And this is talking about that gathering of Israel, and they'll be like unto one body, talking about the people coming back together and being one. And the fruits were equal, all equal. And the Lord of the vineyard had preserved unto himself the natural fruit, which was most precious from him unto the beginning. It's just lovely if you look at it in that way. So, it speaks to the season of restoration of the gospel and the gathering of Israel. This is verses 50 to 76. Verse 70 speaks of other servants that work with the Lord in his vineyard. That's us. That's our prophets. That's our leaders. And on a local level, that's you and I, baby. 60 to 61, how do these verses make you feel about service? Have a look at those. That's talking about, going out there and, again, getting that and to labor diligently and to bring back good fruit. Like, how does that make you feel about the service you're doing? Can you see more of a point to the service you're doing if you look at this whole allegory? I do, so I hope you guys do. How does knowing you are part of the Lord's work make you feel? That you're going out and doing the Lord's work. It's not a lost cause. Any little thing that you do to help nourish another tree or another person, part of the Lord's work. And that's huge. Just even the dentist I had this morning, the assistant and the other lady that came in to help that monitors all the emergency dentists just to make sure they're all good, and because they don't work there all the time. So, have you got the equipment you need? Have you got this and that? They were all so freaking lovely and nice. They helped nourish me. So, it might be their job and they're not of this religion, but they're definitely Christian. And the work they were doing nourished someone else and nourished part of the vineyard. So they're on the Lord's errand. And I'm just, again, very grateful that worked. So there you go. Just an example there from this morning, right? Verses 74 to 75 teach us the result of labouring well in our sphere of influence, including gathering yourself. Now, the Come Follow Me manual mentions this, and I love that it does. Because in gathering everyone else, do not forget to gather yourself. Make sure that you are part of your gathering. Include yourself. And what is your joy because of the fruit of the vineyard? When you see people that you've helped, when you've gathered yourself, what is your joy? My joy is just being a part of them, being in there and being able to go to church or being able to even go to another ward and just see people that are like, oh, you've helped me with this, and just seeing their joy on a daily basis. It's the little things to me, and being able to see someone else's pain alleviated because I was able to do a little thing. That's everything to me. So that's what I'm thinking of. But this is our time in the vineyard. So how do you feel about it? What'd you learn? Let us know. All right, hang around. We'll go over to Jacob 6. I'll see you there.